Yes, another very rich contribution, like all of yours, which gives us yet another dimension. I thought of grouping these last two contributions for obvious reasons. Now you've seen why. Anybody a direct reaction to both these presentations?
I was actually very intrigued by the last two presentations. One of the common ground between them is perhaps a proof of life. So the project itself is a proof of concept, but to carry it through to a proof of life, or what is even a proof of life, I think that ties between a simulation and then what is intelligence, and then how a network of humans and machines comes together. And perhaps a more fundamental notion is like, what is life? And I think in both of their work, there is the sense of minimizing entropy locally, like using intelligence. So it's almost like what Schrödinger have said long time ago, that an entity uses an internal generative model to make sense of incoming sensory data, and that's a form of intelligence. So I think Pietro also asked the question about within simulation and avoiding unexpected. I think within a Schrödinger definition, this is only local. Like, you minimize surprises or chaos, it's local, and it proves that you have a sort of organization or you're living. But on a global topology, it's impossible because we're always in a chaotic environment. And in that sense, I think I'm ready to pass on my question to Pietro, in the sense that monads have no window. So in Leibniz's view, perhaps all the mechanical interaction is nothing more than an optical interaction. So as you were saying, the construction of a point of view. And I think now to situate this very historical context in contemporary of big data, like Heidegger's hammer, we used to have no access into what's inside a hammer. And now with big data, we can basically plug into any electricity devices, and then we're able to extract some truth out of this interior object. So I think there is really an application of such philosophy with the advancement of technology. And an ecosystem, as Andre was saying, an ecosystem of machines that can communicate with each other. So my question to him is probably, with the proprietary incompatibility that we have in all the softwares, like, because of how values circulate, they cannot communicate. Like, if I want to get some data from Rhino into Maya and stuff like that, because of proprietary, they can't communicate. Then how can we have a network of machines that actually, form a larger intelligence?
Want to go ahead, Pietro, or should I jump in?
I thought the question was for you.
All right, I thought there were two questions, but yeah, on this question of incompatibility, actually reminds me. I'm trying to make myself not a theoretician of my thoughts or the thoughts of my team, but we try to make ourselves like a speaking tunnel of our interviewees. As far as we can. Of course, there's our interpretative bias of this whole thing, but your question reminds me of yes, one of the interviewees we had, I did not have time to speak about that because there were many points that were expressed by them, but was the fact, it was connected with this idea of incompatibility and the idea of public good. And we were discussing with this anonymous interviewee the question of there's this idea about individual public transport, which is an important subject today, and it's discussed a lot. And it's, of course, much linked to artificial intelligence because you need systems to conduct that whole thing. But his point was a big catastrophe is about to happen, similar to what happened to trains in England, in the UK at some point, is this public transport, even on the individual scales, is not something that you can privatize. You can have, okay, of course, you can have pod cars and they move around. You can individual transport people, but you have to make this has to be a public service. Otherwise, you will have precisely what you've just mentioned, those incompatibility problem between Google car and Amazon car and whatever. Yeah. And that's not the way public space works. That's not the way a circulation rules work. So this is for me, it was a perfect example of a necessity of public discourse and public governance of this aspect of space, which is mobility and the future of mobility that cannot be left in the hands of private actors for simply just for technical reasons, for starters.
Yeah. I mean, imagine electrical vehicle, like every car has its own cable, like a cable for iPhone, a cable for Android, and then a cable
No,
for, like, how do you even
yeah,
have, like, yeah.
even worse, each vehicle has its own map and its own own set of traffic rules. I mean, it's not thinkable, and it has to be articulated. Those pod cars, this the future of mobility makes absolutely no sense if you don't articulate that to a system of public transport. You know, if you connect two cities, you take a train. It would be
Yeah.
stupid to use a pod car, but you have to distribute these people then locally, and in order for this to be fast and efficient, those things need to be articulated, and this can only be done from a government or public perspective. You cannot expect competing organizations to collaborate with each other in a efficient way, which is not only technically efficient and timely efficient, but also sustainable from the point of view of climate, for instance, and CO2 use.
I think this goes to Pietro in the sense that, like, monads in Leibniz believe they're laid down by a sort of harmony by gods, or in nowadays we can say a larger being. So they're individual, but they're harmonized from some sort of centralized rules.
Yeah, I think that's the difference with the Todd's view of the monads, where they are. Well, first of all, you were saying before they in Leibniz views they don't have windows, while in Todd's view they are overlapping, constantly overlapping, and also they're constantly negotiating their boundaries. So really what defines these boundaries in my view is the observing monads. Latour has a slightly different sort of interpretation of digital monads, and I'm still kind of working my way around that. But I think what's very interesting about what you said before, the relationship between the local and the global, and the possibility to minimize the unexpected locally and non-globally, because I was thinking about yesterday's presentation by Benjamin Bratton and his sort of how he was advocating for a planetary somehow modeling, a new sort of political model whereby we conceive of what Timothy Mitchell called a vast machine, sort of like the planetary scale of modeling as a new political kind of horizon. And but also I was thinking about the fact that Latour identifies in digital monads precisely the possibility to overcome the distinction between micro and micro. So the monad, in a way, it's almost an alternative paradigm to the model, because in the model you have individual entities and rules of interaction between the entities, while in the monad you just have basically in the digital monad you have the capacity all of a sudden, thanks to digital information, to follow through the viral or the contagious threads of influence between different monads. So in a way, you can almost get out of this dichotomy between the micro and the micro. Of course, scale is an artifice. Scale is related to again to the viewer and to the pragmatic kind of context in which we operate. So I think there are lots of very interesting threads. I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but let me think about. And also, I was thinking, looking at Andre's presentation, that even the way you visualized your research seems to imply the notion of the monad somehow, almost as if you were using the idea of semiotic monads, no? Kind of trying to draw the perimeter of notions by linking different semantic areas in your interviews, if I well understand what you showed.
Yeah, well, it was, of course, all these things inspire each other, but maybe it was much simpler. It was basically we were taking this distance matrix and calculated proximity matrix and transformed that into a network, applied a spring embedded algorithm, and then moved it around. But of course, the yes, the topics illuminate each other, and each topic is an interpretative screen or an interpretative realm of all the other topics. So in that sense, it is monadological, but I must admit we did not think about that in those terms when we were designing the interviews. We're more focused on this idea, well, there's an imaginaire, and it's not only atomistic, as one might first think by reading Castoriadis, which is a really complex lecture, and you sort of get lost in it at some points. And then but we thought, okay, we cannot use this. What if we take this a step further and actually say, well, the imaginaire is not as composition or a arrangement of elements, but also a connection between those connections and disconnections between items of the imaginaire. And perhaps what defines the world is not only the inhalt, like the content of those images, but also their very topology that shapes our world. And we thought, yeah, that could be an interesting. Actually, what started as quite a very empirical approach, and must admit, it really started from this semantic, collocation analysis from DH. It's just a standard remote reading procedure, and then suddenly we thought, oh, but there is a connection, sort of this very technical reflection and this very philosophical reflection of Castoriadis suddenly illuminated each other, and we thought, well, we can actually use this technical structure as an interpretation modus of a philosophy. So that's what kind of emerged for us during the process.
Thank you.
Is it possible to jump in for a second?
Sure.
And also, we're still need to answer your question. That was a great question, by the way. So I think first I would say you too, you answered this question already quite on a philosophical level very well. So I think it is not. It's still, as soon as you start to work with tools to show realities, of course, you can first of all see what others can't, and on one hand, but also it opens up new possibilities. What you just said, Andre, to sort things and world again in a new order. That again gives new visibilities, and again, of course, it is going on like that. So the tools, at least like we were working on, or the thinking also is much more going into improving the imaginaire than to settle it down and to control it. And in another point, but of course there is the danger about that, what you also said with the platforms and the whole digital companies that want to control. But very interestingly is, I'm also quite sure, and I do agree that we need government working on that, but very interestingly is that, and I was very shocked that Google stopped with this browsing policy and not going on micro-targeting each person of the browsers and not using these cookies anymore, but already started, just needed these cookies and these private things in order to do these clusters, because now they are just going on to clusters. Before we are starting to look for the individual rights, now Google already jumped over and is working with clusters as much and micro clustering the people, so they don't need the individual anymore. So again, there the technology and of course the capitalism behind the technology is driving the cognitive understanding of the world is much faster than we can adapt with the governments.
Yes. Thank you, Manuel. And I think, we've reached our moment. But it's a really good kind of point to conclude. I hope we don't conclude. I mean, I would love to continue talking because, first of all, it was an incredible chance to learn from your contributions. I enjoyed them a lot. And also, the discussion seems to be flowing very nicely. And it's always a pity to interrupt it. But we have to, because otherwise they will friendly tell me off, my colleagues, that there's other things to move on to. But anyway, yes, what can I say? I mean, there's so many things to say. I have just too many questions. I have papers, I have notes on my computer all over. But I want to thank you once more, and I want to just encourage everyone who's, seeing the session live to check on the program, to go and read your abstracts on the website, your bios, and so on, and to refer to, of course, our kind of strange experimental device, clearly a problematic one, which is the wall. We are aware of all the problems that are there contained, but nevertheless, it's something just that we try to set up to see what happens. So yes, I also encourage you to comment, to add things there. Especially your disagreements, which is something that should also come to the fore in the symposium. So not try to just kind of harmonize artificially things in ways that are not engendering discourse, but actually closing it down. So we don't want to do that. So please, all your disagreements and opinions are very, very welcome. So once more, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to continuing the discussion with you in other forms and to the rest of the symposium. Thank you all. It was a great pleasure.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.